everyone, it's Julia. I just finished up the gray sweatshirt in my series of my spring and summer lineup. I'm going to link the playlist for you. But at the very beginning of my video, the very first one, I mentioned that I had 6 different colors that I was going to be making up and designing for my spring lineup. And this is the very first, the gray one that I started with. I decided to go with the hexagon shapes. I just got a new die for it and I haven't used the die yet, so I was really anxious to do it, and I just love them. They're very playful and just fun. And in that first video I showed you 4 different prints that I was going to kind of use for different embellishments and different accessories, and I used those 4 prints for the hexagons. Notice that I left the band on this sweatshirt. A lot of times I cut them off, but sometimes I leave them on, and I decided to vent it. So I cut it up and I serged so it's edge finished, and then I added the hexi on both the front and the back of the band. I did the same to this side too. I did not put the hexagons down the side, but I did do the vent and the 2 little hexagons. For the sleeve on this one, I took the cuff off and then just did a serged around the edge, did a real simple edge finish, and then added a button. I love the way they cuff back. The inside of these sweatshirts are just so fun. They're just so soft, and they have just a nice color on the inside too. So I do like to cuff them if I can. On the very neckline, top neckline of the sweatshirt, I did the slit down the center and just folded them back and added the button. I do like to add accessories just for my sweatshirts, and I usually just hang them next to my sweatshirts at different shows and events and my little shop. So they're an optional thing, but they're fun, and they're just like an easy accessory to throw on. Just kind of dresses it up. And so that's the accessory that I made, and I will probably make a separate video on how I made these little scarves. Let me know in the comment if you're interested in that. This is a really slick and easy scarf to make, and it's fun because I can add a tab and a yo-yo for the finishing on that. And then there's also like a little piece of lace in there too, and it's just, and then the cuffs of the sweatshirt and the 4 different prints. So that is my first one, and let's get started with just showing you some of the steps in making this. I'm starting with the neckline, and I'm marking the very center front. So I kind of lined up those shoulder seams, and I'm just putting a little mark there with a pencil. And now I'm just laying this flat, and I'm just eyeballing this. Truthfully, you should probably measure, but I've just done so many of these that I just kind of eyeball it. And that little mark is probably about 2.5 inches down from the neckline. And then I'm going to just take my scissor and cut through both of those little marks. And folding it back and just putting a pin in there on both sides. I really like doing this to the neckline. A lot of times on a crew neck sweatshirt, it just gets a bit tight around the neck. I'm cutting off the cuffs now right above that seam. This is an extra large sweatshirt. In some of the larger size sweatshirts, the bottom of the cuff just gets too big around. So I'm taking this little tuck in there and pinning that just to kind of take in some of that width. I'm working on the waistband next, measuring up 3 inches. And now I'm going ahead and I'm cutting that right through the band, right next to the seam, all the way up to that pin. Now I'm getting rid of that serged seam in there, kind of digging it out of the waistband and just kind of cutting all that away. And I'll be doing the same to the other side. I'm going to be taking this to the sewing machine and stitching this using a kind of like a blanket stitch, or it's more like an applique stitch. You'll see it when I get done with it here. When I get to that bottom there, I just kind of just keep on going, taking those pins out and going right over this seam on the neckline. And I am going back and forth a few times just to make sure that's secure on both ends. And there it is. You can kind of see that applique stitch there. Now I'm going to be working at my serger and serging a few pieces here. You can also edge stitch this if you don't have a serger, and many times I do that. I'll edge stitch it instead of serging. This is a cuff that I have that pleat in. I take the pin out and I'm just serging right over that pleat, so it completely just kind of keeps it together. And there you can kind of see it. And when I fold it back, that pleat is in place there. And now for the vent in the waistband. Again, I just start on one side and I just pull it so it's just almost a straight go of it there. And we'll be doing the same on the other side also. Now I'm going to and cutting my hexagons. This is a Sizzix. I'll link it down below, the die cut for this. I have Heat-n-bond-lite on the back of this fabric, and I'm running it through my Big Shot to cut those hexagon shapes. This will cut 4 hexagons at once, and I'm using 2 layers, so I'm getting 8 hexagons when I run it through once. I'm also adding a fabric yo-yo to the middle hexagon going down the side. I forgot to show you that at the beginning. And I'll link the fabric yo-yos and how I make those up above. Also, little circles are going into, and you'll see it when I lay it out where those little circles are going. I'm cutting the circles also with my circle die cut, Sizzix die cut. I'm taking the Heat-n-bond-lite off the backing, and I'm doing my ironing now. And this is on the waistband, and that's where I stick in the little circles. I'm just putting a little yellow circle in the center of those just for another little added touch there. And now for the other side, kind of doing the same thing. I'm using different prints. I'm really not putting a whole lot of thought into which prints I'm using for these. And down the side, and this is where I'm putting the fabric yo-yo with just a glue stick to keep it in place. I'm free motioning these on. You can certainly use any kind of applique. A zigzag even would work here. Whatever you're comfortable with. I'm sewing the little yo-yo on now with my free motion, and I'm just kind of catching it as I kind of go around it. Just every once in a while, just kind of catching it. I gathered up several of my just buttons from my stash, and this is what my button foot looks like. Button sewing on foot. I don't know the real official name for it, but I'm scooting my button underneath that, lining up that first hole on the very left corner of this foot. And that's just how it works for my machine. I walk it over to make sure the width is right before I actually start pressing with my foot control. Now I'm clipping my stitches, or my threads, excuse me, and I use a fray check to secure those stitches on the back side. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this project. I hope you have a chance just to create today. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.